What did I miss? Brian here, and today I'm going to be talking about my most recent engine mod. But before I get into that, I just want to say that this video will take a slightly weird different turn because I had already made a video on me explaining what I got, the reasons of why I got it, and the benefits of it. But little did I know, there was no audio to it, and it was already too late. I had already rendered it, exported it, and I deleted all the raw footage. So I'm stuck with the visual part of the video and no audio whatsoever. So I have to restate everything, and yeah. So it's been a good long time since I made a video on my 4RUNNER. Even though my 4RUNNER has been in all of my videos, the last time I made a video of it was back in January, and that was when I was installing my new door handles. I figured to break that 4-month-long hiatus, I would buy a new mod, which was an engine part, which was an AFE Magnum Force Stage 2 intake with the dry S filter. The dry S filter does not require any oil like a K&N or like the blue AFE filter. It's a gray filter, and all I have to do is just wash it, rinse it, let it dry, and then put it back in the engine. I was 50-50 on getting it because I wasn't too sure if it was going to increase anything like horsepower, torque, or fuel mileage, or anything like that. Because I read online that with some intakes, you don't really get anything out of it. Like, it doesn't increase anything and it's just a waste of money. However, I met a few other people that had AFE intakes and they said it worked. And also, doing a little more research on it, the science behind it makes sense. With the stock intake, it's restrictive, very restrictive. You can see that there are a bunch of curves from the tubing and the intake box itself. There are like 2 or 3 curves before it reaches the throttle body, while the AFE intake is just going straight into the throttle body. AFE claims that with this particular intake, I would get 13 horsepower and 21 foot-pounds of torque. However, I don't really know how to measure that. There's not a garage with a dyno testing area that I could go to. And plus, I don't really plan to dyno my 4RUNNER. I also talked about how I got this intake for pretty cheap, and it was a deal that I could not pass. For most AFE intakes, they are $360 to $400+, and then there's shipping, but that depends on where you get them from. For me, I got mine for $240 with free shipping. That is an insane deal. If you're buying it brand new, it's one thing, but if you're buying it used, it's a whole different situation because it's basically a gamble on whether the seller will actually pull through and send the actual part or scam you. Now, there are different ways he could scam you or she. One, could either not send it at all, or 2, if he does send it, it would either be damaged, missing a part, or it could be the wrong part. Luckily for me, the seller pulled through and sent the intake and everything that it came with. And he even included a throttle body spacer, which was kind of interesting. But do not buy engine parts off of eBay. Don't do it. I got lucky, but it was very risky for me, so I don't recommend it. So now that I got all this explaining bullshit out of the way, let's get on to the rest of the video. The intake was filthy. I got in contact with the seller, asked him about the condition of it, and he told me it was in great condition, which it actually was. He said he only had it for 1 month before he sold his truck, so he definitely put the intake to use. The intake itself was coated in dust and debris, and surprisingly the filter wasn't as dirty, but then again, he only had the intake for a month. There was also a throttle body spacer as well as the hardware, which I guess it's cool. This one's generic, not AFE brand. But I hear that these only work for carbureted engines. Nowadays, you don't even have carburetors anymore. it's all about fuel injected systems now, and having one of these is just useless at this point. But for some fuel injected systems, these do work. I'm not sure how, but they work. And I think a video I saw was a Honda Accord with a red throttle body spacer, and he got some horsepower gains out of it. So I'll give this a go and see how it works. So without further ado, I'm gonna take apart this intake, that way it makes it easier to install. And then we're gonna install this throttle body spacer. So let's get to it. First things first, gotta take off the engine cover. Okay, lift it up. Some things we have to keep in order to install the AFE intake properly. One of them being is the MAF sensor and a couple bolts down here. MAF sensor disconnected. Now, got to undo these clamps that are holding in the intake. And as you can see, this stock intake is just unnecessarily huge. Okay, that's one. That's two. And to make things a little bit easier, we're gonna go ahead and take out the filter and this section of the intake. There we go. Third, gonna undo this clamp down here. And from there, if it's very loose, you could just unscrew it by hand. All right. Tubing is out. Then I'm gonna start unscrewing the bolts off of the rest of the intake. Okay, bolts are off. Undo some of these vacuum hoses, yank out the intake, and undo the back vacuum hose. From there, the stock intake is out. Can't forget about the inlet. One bolt. And there we go. Took out the intake. Now comes the time where I unbolt the throttle body, then bolt in the throttle body spacer, and then rebolt everything, and then install the AFE intake.
Girl, your ass I'm in love with a strong T. Got tens, that's the ones. Let the ground do the math. More money in the club. Let the rain wear the ass. Looking for a bad bitch. Guess what? She just that. Hair, jet black. Got an ass that's fat. She the reason why every nigga in here keep running back and hogging all down. They get that girl to roll. Everybody got an invitation, open car doors. She's a monster on that pole. Slowly sliding down. She could easily steal your soul. Bouncing that ass all around. When she hit the floor, trying to splash up her puddle. Wonder what's the next play. Like she coming out of huddle like a shuttle. Smoke out her soul, taking off. And she look me in my eyes while she take her clothes off. On her face, that pretty, and she whisper in my ear to tell me she coming back. What I'm saying is you a bad bitch, a bad bitch. Girl, your ass I'm in love with a strong T. Got tens, that's the ones. Let the ground.
Just finished installing the AFE intake, and just a couple things I want to say. One, you can't use the engine cover whenever you have both the intake and the throttle body spacer in place, because it shifts the throttle body off to the side a bit, so makes it difficult to position these little studs to screw in. But other than that, it's way more open and you got a lot more space for more mods over there. And I have to say, this looks really nice. Now all that's left to do is to start it up, check to make sure there are no air leaks, and if there aren't any, check to make sure there's no check engine light. And if there's none, then we could go crazy. So far, by the looks of it, there aren't any air leaks. Now let's check inside. Sitting inside, and we got a couple lights. We got the seatbelt light and the door opening light, but we don't have any check engine lights, so we are clear. Installing the intake and the throttle bispacer were both very easy. It's a bummer that we can't use the engine cover, but it's whatever. Maybe at some point I'll take off the throttle bispacer to make it look nicer with the engine cover. But I feel like with the engine cover, because it's got that little slant, that kind of blends in with the look of the OEM intake, and I feel like with this one it's just going to look a bit off. So for now, we'll just make it look like the engine's exposed. Maybe at some point I'll get tired of it and then just put the engine cover back on. But that is it for today. Thanks for watching. If you're subscribed, thanks. If you're not, thanks for taking the time to watch this. So take care, everybody. I'll catch you on the flip side.